Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of the Prep Baseball Wisconsin WIAA podcast. I'm Max Durst here with my partner David Go. David, we're entering the final week of the regular season here. It's coming all down to the stretch.
We are. We're at almost at playoff time, which is I say this every week. It's crazy how fast it goes. I kind of forget how fast baseball season goes in Wisconsin. I spent 1 year away from Wisconsin, and our baseball season was like a 4 month spring season. So now we're back. It's like what 6 weeks, and you're done, or you're already in playoffs. So teams are getting ready for the playoffs. Got their last tune-ups maybe on Monday, maybe for D1 teams a little bit later this week. But yeah, we're already here at the end of the year.
Right? Yeah, for sure. It's an exciting time, definitely, and we're really winding down. Playoffs start this week, so we got our seeding really in for the Division 2 through Division 4 rounds, and they're all set and ready to go. And we're going to preview some of that along with what we saw this week. So, you and I first went out to Reneke Field to take in Whitefish Bay and Homestead and North Shore Conference matchup. Obviously, a lot of star power was surrounded between those two teams, and really a few standouts. And we got to see a lot of good action. Really, one of the main ones was JD Dix being able to get back out in the infield and get some playing time out on the field and continuing to produce at the plate. He scored the game winning run, of course. So, really, that was exciting to see.
Yeah, it was exciting to see. Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys there, or a lot of scouts there for JD Dix, who, yeah, he was back at second, which was good to see for sure. I feel like the first couple of bats, you didn't really see a lot of him at the plate. He had a strikeout that I know didn't go over too well with the scouts. He had a walk, didn't really get much to hit earlier on. He had the weirdest thing was that like his most impressive showing in the game were some foul balls. He just like turned on a pitch that probably went like 320, and he hit it probably 100 miles an hour off the bat. That was a little bit foul, but you can kind of see that the scouts like, okay, they felt a little bit validated from that. And when we're talking about a guy who's a top, I mean, we have him ranked, I think I should have checked up on this, number one in the state, right?
Yep,
So he's one of the top guys in the state. You're obviously looking for him to be a big player in every single high school game that he plays in, which is a pretty high expectation for a 17, 18-year-old, but also something that JD Dix has lived up to this point.
for sure. And I thought some of the intangibles he did, just being able to like, he even talked some pitchers through some, I assume, strategies and stuff, and being able to be just a calming presence on the diamond. And really, that's kind of what we saw last year when he got hot, along with Jack Council and Austin Winky going to state. And then really, they just tore it up and defeated everyone in their path. And I kind of see something similar brewing. It's a wide out open sectional for them. Like there's not really one dominant team in their sectional, and I think they might take advantage of that. But Paul Nutzel was another guy. We saw him on the mound, and we've seen him up to 90 before. He was still good throwing at Reneke. I thought he played pretty well. And then obviously at the plate, where he's shown a lot of promise, and he launched a home run out of Reneke right over the center field wall. It was pretty well struck. Like, what'd you think of his play?
Yeah, I don't want to say like compare him. It's tough to compare pitching versus hitting, but I was impressed with his hitting. I know he's got a little bit more of a pedigree as a pitcher. It seemed like he just wasn't quite 100% the way you know that there's more in the tank. I don't know. I'm not saying he was injured or anything, but you know there's a little bit more in the tank. You know that he maybe he has pitched better. We know he's pitched better before, but he was still all right. And the home run he allowed, it was, I think, a 3-run shot just down the line, that short porch and right. So he allowed, I think it was 4 runs, but really was kind of it wasn't a bad 4-run outing for him. And the home run was impressive. Yeah, absolute rocket to center field. And I mean, he hit it, and I remember. I mean, I was recording it, and like, wow, it was one of the more impressive balls that I've seen struck all year from a high schooler. So switch hitter also. He's someone that definitely impressed me. As someone who's maybe one of the lesser experienced guys on staff, it's kind of nice for me. You guys all know who the players are to watch, and you're kind of telling me a little bit, but then I get to see him with a little bit of a fresh set of eyes. And so for Nutzel, that was someone that stood out to me, and Charlie McIntyre, who I know we've covered before, but I didn't really know about McIntyre before that. And you see him in center, and right away you're like, this is a very good defender, someone you could put in a Division 1 lineup as he matures into his body. We're talking 3-4 years down the road, but somebody that definitely could be a plus defender in center in a Division 1 lineup. And he also pitched too, which I think his future is probably on the field, but he was definitely one guy that I walked away being impressed with.
For sure. I thought he was, once again, just like a competitive left handed pitcher on the mound. Like he quietly goes about his business. Again, that's why he did at state last year, only as a freshman. And like his bat to ball contact really at the plate, and really just, he's established himself in the top of the order as a productive batter for the last 2 years. And he's, again, just continues to put balls in play, and it frustrates defenses. And he has good speed. Obviously, you saw that in center field, and I think he put together a really good showing on Monday in their extra inning win, and kind of like allowed their offense to get going again after Ben Van Baal hit that 3-run home run to tie it up, and then they eventually walked it off.
Yeah, agree. I mean, he was a catalyst really at the top of the order, or in the. I think he was hitting out of the 2 spot behind Dix. So, yeah, definitely someone that was one of the more impressive guys in the contest. And then we went out. Was it Thursday that we went out? Wednesday, I think. Wednesday we went to Waupun against Kettle Moraine Lutheran. Kettle Moraine Lutheran walked it off. It was a weird game. There was one play. Was it in the 7th or the 8th inning?
I believe the 7th.
7th, okay. And Brett Beyondich was pitching. One hopper kicks off his foot and then hits his backside, picks it up, gets the guy between home and third, kind of caught there, and then as he takes one kind of lean towards third, throws it to third, and now instead of getting that guy in a rundown, tags the other guy out, then throws home, probably would have the runner out at home, instead hits the runner's helmet. Then they think the runner doesn't touch home, so they go over and to tag him, but he's safe. And then as the runner on second now, who is the hitter, advances to third. It's kind of difficult to explain this in audio format only, but it was one of the probably 5 weirdest plays I've seen in high school baseball, and you will get a lot of weird plays in high school baseball.
I think so. I think you're right there. But yeah, it was like Waupun and Kettle Moraine Lutheran. That was a game I got to see last year, and then going back to KML this year up in Jackson, and once again, just another competitive game. Really, I think those two teams are pretty even, in my opinion. Like Kettle Moraine Lutheran understands how to win. That's really what they've been based on for the last couple of years now, is just putting together multiple wins. And you and I were impressed with Beyondich. I don't know if we were expecting 92 miles an hour right away. He had to work through some troubles, and just really small ball turned in by Waupun, and that's really what they do all year, and that's how they frustrate teams. He was able to overcome that, and then he eventually scored the game-winning run. I believe he walked during that at-bat. Didn't see a ton of strikes necessarily during that game, but at the plate, you could tell the ball sounded different off of his bat.
Yeah, the swing is there. We were talking about this a little bit early in the game, but he doesn't necessarily have a swing that's very compact, but it's a good swing. It's very balanced, and there's pop in there for sure. I think as he matures, as he grows, I mean, he's a 2026 guy. So as he matures into his body and gains some strength, I think the swing probably will get a little bit quicker. And he's someone that, I mean, right now, one of the better hitters that you'll see in high school baseball. So yeah, I mean, he was on the mound when Waupun tied the game, but he also was a big part in Kettle Moraine Lutheran ultimately winning the game. So he fell behind a little bit in the count sometimes as he was working out of the pen, but he also showed some really good stuff. I mean, he was again up to 92 with a healthy amount of run. His breaking ball when it was in the zone was excellent. Gets great movement on it. So Beyondich definitely a guy to watch. As we're aware of. I mean, he's a TCU commit, one of the top guys in the state, but it was good to get another look at him. And then Maddox, you went out to watch a couple games on Tuesday, and you saw a lot of good arms, a lot of good players. Tell us a little bit about some of the guys that stood out to you.
All right, so yeah, I had a lot of action this week. There's a lot of games going on, and finally got to get out to them, so that was really exciting. And yeah, there were 2 games going on, 2 greater Metro matchups between Brookfield Central and Wauwatosa West, and then Germantown, Wauwatosa East, both at Bright Low Field. They're in their little two field setup for the most part, and really all four arms were pretty good throughout the entire game. Like they dominated all of their starts, which was really exciting to see. There are two close games. First for Brookfield Central, it was Colton Semmelman, and we've been on. I believe he is the number 4 ranked player in the 2026 class now. He keeps elevating his game. Really a lot of upside for a sophomore left-hander. We got him up to 87. He held the mid 80s throughout the entire game, flipped up a nice breaking ball that got swings and misses. And they needed all of it, really, because they were going up against Adam Urban, who really I was super impressed with. I like just in the past and that stuff, like I was really excited that he was one throwing into the wind. He was throwing against the wind, my bad. Which worried me a little bit. Like it was a cold day, it was super windy, and he came out and he threw 92 right away. Like again, similar to what we just said with Brett Beyondich, and it was like it flashed like right away, and it was super impressive. And he really sat in the upper 80s, low 90s throughout his entire start. Through he has a really nice splitter. Really, it's got a lot of changeup feel. Like it looks like a changeup, but obviously he kills the spin a lot. And we've seen that in the past as a former future gamer. And then he flipped up a nice breaking ball as well. And that was really that 3 pitch mix. He ran into some trouble in the first inning just with command issues and that stuff and a few defensive errors. And then after that, he cruised and had numerous strikeouts and was really dominant over a good Brook Central team. Montgomery O'Brien for Wauwatosa East on the other field, another upside lefty, 2026 class. He really showed well. We got him up to 84. I know our scout Connor Lumens, who was also there, really liked what he brought and his ability to mix and command the zone and really staying on top of it. He shut down a pretty good Germantown offense that can put up runs pretty quickly. And he had the duel against Logan Zavril, who threw 5 no-hit innings to start his game really, and he dominated throughout that entire stretch before running into some trouble in the 6th. But lots of arm side run really in his fastball. And that's again what Connor told me and what I was able to watch. And then the ability to once again be comfortable with his secondary pitches and throwing those for strikes and really keeping hitters off balance throughout his entire start. So yeah, I'd say Tuesday was a pretty good day all around.
Yeah, I did want to ask about one thing. Do you think pitching into the wind makes you throw slower, or it just appears slower because like by the time it gets to home plate, it's taking longer? Like out of the hand, is it the same?
I'm not sure to be honest. Like it was a weird day because I was standing like facing the field and the wind was like blowing me towards the field. Like it was a
Weird.
strong probably 20 to 25 mile per hour, and I had some worries where it was like shoot, like this is going to make fastballs slower in general. Like it's going to be tougher to just pitch in general. And really, both pitchers excelled. Like I thought they did great, and it was a 3-0 game, super clean. Like it was really impressive.
Hmm. Yeah, I always found pitching into the wind to be kind of a weird thing. I guess either way. I mean, they say that the ball appears faster when you're throwing when the wind is behind you, which isn't surprising. But also, two seamers and changeups and breaking balls are all better if the wind's in your face. So, um, I don't know, changes the game a little bit. I feel like that's one of the things with baseball you don't get in other sports. There's no weather in basketball, or I mean, I guess football there is, but I don't feel like it makes as big of a difference.
True, true. I understand that. But the weather did improve for my Saturday game, which really helped me out. It felt good, warm weather again. That was nice. Went to a really good Power 25 matchup between Kimberly and Oak Creek. And honestly, there were 5 home runs in the game. The wind was slightly blowing out, but honestly, all the home runs were legit. I was super impressed. Like, I think this is the most home runs that I've seen really in the last like 2 weeks that I've seen ever in my 2.5 years doing this. And it's been super impressive. And Sawyer Deering led the way with that, hitting in the leadoff spot. And he really clutched up for Kimberly throughout the entire game. I was really impressed, like super quick swing and obviously a lot of pop. He went up to the opposite field with his first home run and then hit really a line drive home run to left center field in like back to back innings and put Kimberly on top and gave them a nice lead to work with. And again, like guys on Oak Creek like Mac Andres and Reese Doyle had the clutch home run in the seventh inning to tie the game and send it to extra innings, really giving Oak Creek a chance to win it at the end. And that was really impressive to see after they then loaded the bases again. And there was a lot of action going on. Like I was running around the entire time, which was super fun to see. Guys like Brady Kester showed well at the plate. We saw a freshman in Maddox who really I thought threw well. Oak Creek's an insanely tough lineup to navigate. Like we've talked about their senior core and really all the power that they have within that lineup, and it's really difficult to navigate through that lineup. And I thought Maddox did a really good job of it. Just as a freshman, he was up to 81, really comfortable with the changeup and a curveball that he was throwing, and he mixed it really well. In addition to his fastball, he was able to spot it wherever he wanted. After working through probably some first inning jitters, ran into some command issues at times, but really he capped off a 4-0 week for Kimberly, which will move them up in the rankings come Monday.
Yeah, where does Papermakers rank in the best nicknames in the state?
It's one of the most unique, I will say that. You're not really sure what a papermaker is technically. I think it's in the name, but
Well, I mean, I think isn't there a big paper manufacturer in Kimberly?
you're
Is that
right.
what it is?
Yep, there is. So I assume that's part of what goes into it.
Hmm. We should do like a deep dive, do some investigative journalism. We're both journalism people. How did each of the unique high schools, how did they get their nicknames?
I think so. I
Maybe
think
if we
that
have
would be
enough
a really
interns this
fun
summer.
piece.
Yeah, then we'll have time for that. But there were a couple big upsets this week involving some of the bigger teams in the state, and that is even partly why Kimberly will be moving up in the rankings. Middleton and Waunakee each took down Sun Prairie East. We saw Sun Prairie East last week, and they were undefeated at the time. They were 20-0 by the end of Saturday, but now they have 2 losses to their name. They were ranked number 1. I know there have been some discussions internally about whether they will stay at number 1. They may still, they may not. And then Waukesha West took down Muskego twice during the weekend. Muskego's a team that's loaded with prospects, especially in the younger class, but also some seniors and upperclassmen. So anything you wanted to touch on in those 2 upsets?
Yeah, I mean the Sun Prairie East losses aren't too worrisome, I'd say. I don't think it calls for overreaction. They went on to beat Middleton 13-6 in that second game during the week, and really they did fall behind early again in that second game, but scored I think 13 unanswered runs to take down Middleton. So obviously getting some of that rhythm back, and I think it can be tough after, like we talked about, we saw them at the latter half of a 6-game week in 6 days or whatever it was, and that can be kind of tough to bounce back from. But not too worried about either team really. Obviously, we know about Muskego's talent, and I think we've really talked about on this podcast for, I think we're on episode 7 now, of just how much talent there is in the Classic 8 and how loaded it is. Like, you can't really take nights off in that conference, and Waukesha West kind of proves that point, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that conference is it the best? I don't know. I don't want to engage in this debate right now. I have to do more research, but yeah, definitely one of the best in the state for sure. And Muskego, an excellent team, but losing twice to Waukesha West, which really hasn't been. They haven't been a team that we've talked about too much lately. But I feel like we're deep enough in the episode now that it's time to turn our attention over to tournament talk, because the Division 2 through Division 4 brackets are out now. Division 1, I think the seeding meetings are kind of ongoing as we're recording this, so that'll be a topic of conversation for next week. I know D2 to D4, they start this Thursday, the first round. D1 starts, is it the following Tuesday? Is that right?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so.
So we'll have a little bit of time next weekend to talk about D1's upcoming tournament first round, and then recap a little bit what we saw early in D2 to D4. But the first round's always a little tough because you get like the 3 versus the 14, or maybe the 5 seed against the 12. Some of the best teams get buys. But there are a few intriguing matchups, whether it be team matchups or pitching matchups. So Maddox, why don't you start us off with a couple of your big matchups you're looking forward to right away, right out of the gate in the first round?
Right? Yeah, I'm pumped. This all gets started on Thursday, and we really get to start to see which teams can separate themselves and come playoff time. So, yeah, one of the first games that really does stand out to me is Amro versus Watoma. That's up by the Oshkosh area, I'd say. It's a Division 3 matchup, 8 versus 9 seed. A lot of people know about Logan Dunn, and I don't know how many have been paying attention to his ridiculous production that he's put up throughout the entire year. Latoma's just above 500, but really between his work on the mound and then mostly his work as a batter, like it has been super impressive to see his production and how he's kind of carried that Watoma team and really how they're setting up now to be kind of a little bit of a dark horse, I'd say, in that 8-9 matchup. And then Bryce Loker will match up on the other side. He's a really good 2026 arm that we've been following. Really, we've seen him in the mid 80s before and kind of under the radar this year, but he's put together some successful starts, which has been exciting to see. So I think that'll be really one of the main matchups to witness on Thursday.
Yeah, big pitching matchup for Division 3 matchup, 8 versus 9. That'll be maybe the best pitching matchup, or at least you would hope that it will be up there. And both teams battling. I mean, they come in as basically even teams, and both pitchers trying to will their way to victory. For Division 2, Altoona and Onalaska, they're the 4 and 5 seeds. Tell us a little bit more about why you're intrigued about those teams.
Right, yeah. So Altoona made to state last year, obviously, and made to the semifinals, and they've really emerged as a power in Eau Claire. Like we had CJ Kaler on last week, and he talked about how talented Altoona is, and they're a 4 seed right now in that regional, which I think is super interesting. I think that's again under the radar, and obviously there's talent there. You think about Trent Cornell and Cameron St. John, and Kellen Smith has had a really good year, I think, at the plate, and Onalaska has been able to put together a lot of quality wins up in the lacrosse area. They've been a really good Division 2 team, really solid, and they have to play tough competition every year. And those two matching up as the 4 and 5 likely will match up on Tuesday, assuming there aren't any upsets in that process. But I think really the winner of that can challenge St. Croix Central, who is the 1 seed in that bracket.
Yeah, that one definitely sounds like a couple intriguing teams over in that region. And then Aliva Strum, that's a team that we talked about earlier in the year. Haven't really heard too much about them. I think they had a number of losses that were a little bit of upsets going in going into the year, because I mean they were projected to be what, maybe the number 1 team in Division 4. Columbus Catholic, another really good team. Talk to me a little bit about those teams and why you think they may make it out of their bracket.
Yeah, so that regional, I think we talked about last week too. It's really loaded. Like I think between Ithaca being on the bottom of that as the 1 seed, and then the entire other regional with Bangor, Pittsville, and a couple of other really good Division 4 teams like Aliva Strum and Columbus Catholic, who was undefeated really early on during the season. Like that's whoever comes out of that sectional and gets to play at state, they're going to be a really tough out for the state championship. And between Aliva Strum and Columbus Catholic, I think it's really similar to Altoona and Alaska, just on a Division 4 level. Aliva Strum had to play really tough competition throughout the entire year. They just beat Pewaukee, which was a really big win for them at American Family Field. Like that, I think that's super impressive. And I don't know how many other Division 4 teams could really pull that off, to be honest, and being a school of that size with that much talent. And that's why I think they set up really well. They have the pitching staff to make it through a day of sectionals and can make it through multiple days in a regional. And the same goes for Columbus Catholic. There's some talent there that we saw over this past summer, and they've put on a really good showing and got a 5 seed with a really good record. So I think it's going to make it pretty tough in that bracket. We'll see who comes out on top, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all those being ones that are outside the Milwaukee area. I feel like you're a little bit more familiar with those teams around the state maybe than I am. I did notice a big matchup. At least, some of these teams have been better in years prior, but they're still both legit teams. Grafton and Port Washington. I know that one might be near and dear to your heart. Is that one that you're going to be watching on Thursday?
Of course, I'll be somewhere around, staying tuned for that. But
obviously that'll be, I don't know, rivalry game. Like, of course, it's going to be good. Like, I feel like records kind of go out and get thrown out in games like that. Would you agree?
I think so. Are you going to be wearing your scout hat, your alumni hat, or your coach's son hat during that game?
Well, we will see about that. I'm not sure yet, but I might be out at another game. I don't know, but I'll definitely be following along. Like it'll be super interesting because Port has a few prospects where they could come out like Sam Heft is a guy who can come out and really shut down any team if he gets hot at the right time. And obviously, Grafton has a pretty good lineup. They got 7 wins in the North Shore Conference. So, but they're gonna have to match up against KML, the winner of that. And that's we touched on KML earlier in the show, and really they haven't lost too much in the last probably month now, and it's been a super impressive watch. So that's a dangerous 2 seed in my opinion. And you noticed Mozini too as another team who will really have a tough matchup between the winner of Freedom and Oconto Falls.
Yeah, I was looking ahead a little bit at some of the pitching matchups, and maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Carter Hero from Oconto Falls. I was thinking, is he going to pitch against Freedom, or are they going to try to save him and play the long game and throw him against Mozini? Mozini being the 1 seed, definitely a team that we could see at state. That's something that I'd be intrigued to watch him up against that Mozini lineup. Medford, another school that's been good all year, and we had Coach Robbie and Tanner on the podcast earlier in the year. Another team that gets the 1 seed. One bracket that I'm intrigued by, another region that I'm intrigued by. Lake Country Lutheran got the 1 seed. Kenosha St. Joe's in the same bracket as the number 2 seed in Division 3. Lake Country Lutheran. I think this is now week number 3 in a row that we've talked about LCL. They were in my high school conference, but they're usually a good tournament team. I thought it was like 3-4 years ago that they were a team going to state every year. It was actually 10, not 8 to 10, 9 to 11 years ago that they made it to state, the state championship game 3 years in a row and won 2 of them. But historically, they're a good program. They've got a lot of talent. They didn't really miss a beat when they had a little bit of adversity earlier on in the year. And so they're a team that's interesting. And then St. Joe's won just a couple of years ago that D3 championship. So I'll be curious to see that. Now, that'll be a matchup that will be taking place not this week, but still an interesting region, in my opinion. And then Denmark and Kiel, they're in the same bracket in Division 2. Kiel is the number 1 seed. And they're a team that I think they didn't lose a game in WIAA play until last week. They were really rolling, and I mean, still are rolling. They only lost 1 game. And then Denmark, they've won the last 3 championships in the state. So those are 2 really good teams that are definitely big state contenders, and one of them isn't going to make it out of their own region. So those are a few of the regional matchups that I'm watching, both in the first round and then going forward.
Yeah, for sure. I think on that Denmark and Kiel note, like I don't know if we can really count out Denmark in any playoff scenario at this point. Like they continue to prove that they're really. I interviewed Coach Bill Miller, who recently stepped away from the program, but just over the winter, and I don't know if he necessarily believed that they were like gonna make it back to state for a third time in general, and they just continue to put together wins, and they're going to be fundamentally sound. And then obviously Kiel continues to win. They made state last year, won a lot last year, and have really carried that momentum into the 2024 season.
Yeah. So we'll have a lot more clarity on how things are shaping up by the time we see you guys next week after the first round, Thursday, and then if they win for the winners, they'll play on Tuesday the following week. So we'll have the first round matchups in by the time we talk to you guys next week. But we covered some of the big matchups for the playoffs, but there are a number of big matchups coming up for our games of the week. We excluded the playoff matchups because we gave them their own segment, but our games of the week, we have a few good ones, mostly Division 1 games because they're playing a little bit more this week with their playoffs starting later. But a couple matchups as well in the D2 through D4 range. Monday, we've got Wisconsin Lutheran versus Kenosha St. Joe's. Talked about St. Joe's as a potential state contender, and Wisconsin Lutheran, they've got Eddie Reinders, of course, and and some other pieces as well. Don't want to overlook some of the other guys they've got. Altoona and Hayward play on Monday, both teams that earn pretty high seeds as well. And then Oliva Strum against Blair Taylor. So tell me a little bit about why you're excited for those matchups.
Yeah, for sure. The Wisconsin Lutheran Kenosha St. Joe's, there's just talent spread throughout that entire thing. Obviously, we talked about Reinders and really his production and raising his status as one of the top seniors in the 2024 class at this moment in the state. I'd say maybe even in the region. And guys like Jake Ross and the rest of that lineup, like Eli Dryer's another one, a good mix of upperclassmen and underclassmen that make that lineup really tough, and they're going to be stacked for their sectional. And then you look at St. Joe's, and it's guys like Dominic Santarelli going to Louisville and that stuff, and then guys like Peter Visconti too, and that's a lot of star power in two lineups right there, and they're gonna battle. I'm not going to assume that like number ones and twos are going to throw in that game necessarily, since seeding is determined, but it'll be a really nice tune-up for sure. And then Altoona Hayward is a really good Division II matchup. I didn't know that these two teams were matching up, to be honest. I didn't know they were playing each other, and it'll be super competitive. Hayward's put together a really good year. I hope to see him at some point. It's a far drive for some of us on the south side of the state here, but again, we talked about Altoona in the beginning, and that'll be a really good battle. And then Blair Taylor is actually the number 3 seed in that sectional, I believe. And I've put on social media the prowess of Tavian Schrammick and how good he's been on the mound. And he struck out, I believe, somewhere around 18 batters in their first matchup against Oliva Strum in a 1-0 victory. So it was under a lot of pressure, and he's been dominant all year. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him on an all-state team for us, just depending on how the year finishes up for him. So those are 3 really good matchups, in my opinion.
Yeah, it looks like it'll take us, at least for me, 5 hours and 8 minutes if I want to get to that Hayward game, Altoona versus Hayward. So I don't know if we're going to be able to make that one work. But if we were able to, we definitely would be out at that one. We got three matchups between Oak Creek and Kenosha Tremper this week. They play Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Arrowhead and Muskego play Tuesday, Thursday, as do Verona and Sun Prairie East. And then Oak Creek versus Menominee Falls, capping off our week. That'll be on Saturday. So some big D1 matchups there. Talk to me a little bit about what you're excited to see in one of those matchups or in all of them.
Right, yeah. I think the first Oak Creek Kenosha Tremper, that'll be another test for Tremper. They've had a really good year. Just haven't really they're trying to get over the hump right now and trying to get some of those signature wins. And guys like Ethan Bauer-Schmidt and Rory Dutton will definitely be standouts in that one. And obviously I saw Oak Creek and all their star power, get to see Peyton Gibbon on the mound, and really a lot of action going on in that. It will determine the conference champion in the Southeast Conference. So those are the top 2 teams right now. We've touched on Arrowhead and Muskego a lot in the Classic 8 in general. The talent there is endless. I simply put, like, it will just be 2 really fun games. And I think the same goes for Verona and Sun Prairie East. Jack DTN is going to throw on Tuesday for Verona, and I'm super interested to see how he does against the number 1 team in the state, really, for the last couple of weeks. And you and I saw him on that Saturday doubleheader, and they definitely looked the part, and Verona has really gotten hot over the last couple of weeks, I'd say.
Yeah, some big matchups coming up in Division One, and those will be the final tune-ups. I mean, the seeding will probably be in for all those teams before now, but of course, you're still playing for something. You're still playing for maybe some conference championships, playing for at least pride, because I mean, there's a lot on the line with some of these in-conference matchups coming up here at the end of the year, and you want to build some confidence heading into the playoffs, especially some of these teams. I mean, their regions are stacked. They've got big matchups coming up right away. So again, big week coming up Thursday, the start of Division 2, 3, and 4 postseason, and then the final week of play for Division 1. Maddox, I mean, we've already talked about all the things that you're excited for, but if you could narrow it down to like the one thing, what is the one thing you are most excited for this week?
Man, that's tough. It's really tough, but I honestly think I'm super curious to see any upset that really goes down. Honestly, the Division Four state tournament last year turned into McDonald's Central made it in there last year with a below 500 record. And I think those are like the best stories. I think that's like the most exciting part of this. Like we look at the ones and the twos as like kind of sharpies really to make it to the state tournament and come out of the regional in most cases. And it never turns out that way. I think that's the most exciting part about the WIAA and the playoffs and how thrilling that is. So I'm most excited to see what Cinderella story emerges from the 2024 season.
Yeah, might see a little bit of May Madness, maybe May or June. I don't know. May Madness, June Madness. Either way, I'm excited for the tournament as well as we'll start that off this week already. So thank you again for listening. Thanks for following us, and we enjoy talking baseball, of course, talking WIAA baseball, especially as we head into the best time of the year, the state tournament. So as always, signing off. This is Maddox, Durst, and David Go.